as stated in Modern Money Mechanics, of course they, the banks, do not really pay out loans from the money they receive as deposits. If they did this, no additional money would be created. What they do when they make loans is to accept promissory notes, loan contracts, in exchange for credits, money, to the borrower's transaction accounts. In other words, the $9 billion can be created out of nothing simply because there is a demand for such a loan and that there is a $10 billion deposit to satisfy the reserve requirements. Now, let's assume that somebody walks into this bank and borrows the newly available $9 billion. They will then most likely take that money and deposit it into their own bank account. The process then repeats, for that deposit becomes part of the bank's reserves. 10% is isolated, and in turn 90% of the $9 billion, or $8.1 billion, is now available as newly created money for more loans. And, of course, that 8.1 can be loaned out and redeposited, creating an additional 7.2 billion, to 6.5 billion, to 5.9 billion, etc. This deposit money creation loan cycle can technically go on to infinity. The average mathematical result is that about $90 billion can be created on top of the original $10 billion.
What was that they're quoting from? Modern Money Mechanics? Sounds interesting. Maybe I should read it in its entirety. I realized that this thought had not crossed your mind at all. Lucky for you, well, it had occurred to me. So now I can explain it to you in a far better way than Zeitgeist can. Because, well, they kind of lie. Remember when he said that these transactions can go on infinitely and just keep on expanding and expanding and expanding and creating more and more money? But only happens an average of about 9 times per transaction. It turns out that's absolutely not true. 9 is the maximum number of times that it can happen. If what Zeitgeist said is true, then inflation would be exorbitant. Instead, it's, 2-3%. It's also a fact that the Fed sets these events in motion by actually buying treasury bills from authorized dealers, which are other banks. This puts more money into the economy, and that's how you get more money in the economy. Now, the Fed can also contract the money supply by selling these treasury bills to these same banks. In fact, that's what the Federal Reserve is. It's thousands of economists, some privately employed, some publicly employed, but it is a government body. And what they do is they sit around going, what's up with the money supply? Should we expand it or contract it? And they make those decisions based on a whole bunch of economic data, which they understand because they are all professional economists. Do you know how many professional economists complain about the Federal Reserve being evil and, raping the economy and whatever else you guys say? 0. Because they are professionals who understand the economy. You guys, the only people who complain about this are a bunch of idiots who really have no clue. Oh, and it turns out that court case, First National Bank of Montgomery versus Jerome Daly, was actually overturned and has 0 validity as precedent. I also want to point out that third world debt is a real problem that real people who think that conspiracy theories are silly are working on. Now, I'm not saying that progress is great, but debt relief is being worked on by, again, real people who don't care about you. Now, you guys are welcome to stop talking about nonsense and discuss real issues, but you're not going to do that. No. You're too fascinated by all this bankster crap. Seeing as how Zeitgeist quoted this as a source, it's gold, right? Well, I want to read this line. What makes these instruments, checks, paper money, and coins acceptable at face value in payment of all debts and for other monetary uses. Mainly is the confidence people have that they will be able to exchange such money for other financial assets and for real goods and services whenever they choose to do so. Now I read this because in previous vids I have said that the gold standard is archaic because we have all these goods and services in the economy that are all far more valuable than gold. Things like, I don't know, this book, for example, called The House of Rothschilds. Yeah, that's right. See, you guys think you know a lot about history, so I'm going to have to do a vid series about the history of banking, really. The Rothschilds will be my first vid, and I'll give you a little preview. They did not engineer a stock market crash by claiming that Napoleon actually won Waterloo. See, that's just another thing that you guys are just way off on. Many of you like to think of me as some big, fat, weird-looking guy. I'm not though. See, I'm actually 6'4", I'm healthy, 200 pounds, I'm in good shape. When you guys insult me, I mean, I get a kick out of it, really. Like, you guys really need to get a life. Seriously, you need to get a life. I mean, some of you have been doing this for years. All you do is type the same nonsense again and again and again. And people tell you why you're wrong, but then you just keep coming back saying, no, what about the NWO? And really, you're wasting your lives. I mean, I've been into this for a few months now, but I get a kick out of it. I find you people hilarious. I mean, you are the weirdest people of all time. Seriously, like, I spent hours just shaking my head thinking, what is with these people? Why do they believe this crap? See, this is part of my collection of books. It's mostly historical nonfiction. Basically what I'm getting at is I know how detailed and complex our knowledge of the past few hundred years actually is. I also know how historians operate. They have detailed investigations using as many first-hand sources as possible. I have no idea what makes you think a few words from some loser like Alex Jones, David Icke, the Zeitgeist fucktards, or even worse, the Ring of Power losers, trumps all this. I really don't know why you think this and insist that it's true when it is most certainly not. You people are soon to become an interesting historical footnote. One day, I will tell my grandchildren about when all kinds of people thought some really stupid things.